sort of one of the pieces of news that I guess I didn't really cover this. No, I didn't. I don't think I did actually, but I did see the video, and it was on a topic list that I had that, eventually once you get so far past an event, it's, I don't know if it's necessarily worth rehashing everything that happened at the event, especially after I'd covered it for like a week and I'd done a lot of episodes on it. But there was a question that I believe from Collect's app. It was, one of the content creators who's he's like a kid, which is really cool. I think I met him probably I think I met them at like the National a couple of years ago. Very cool, but they were making some content and they got Michael Rubin. And the question was, hey, they've seen the debut patches for baseball and for MLS. Were they going to do that for football? And Mike Rubin said, yeah, they had planned on doing that. And that kind of ties into what has happened here. We are in week 1. We have the Monday night game. I forget if there's 2 Monday night games. I actually do miss those days. So I'm fairly certain there isn't. I'm pretty sure there's only one. And I think depending on when you're listening to this, it would be the 49ers and Jets, I think. So I think that's the only one. But when I was watching the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, he had a rookie premier debut patch on his jersey, which I didn't realize that they were going to be doing it this year. I mean, I guess it makes sense because why wouldn't they? They already kind of have the plans in place to do it with the other sports. So why wouldn't they get in on the NFL? I guess maybe one thing that I think will be interesting too in JJ McCarthy's sake or in his circumstance, he wouldn't have that card or the patch, which now like the NFL is weird because I guess I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways you can look at the concept of the patch and how it. I don't know. I'm depending on. They're going to have to figure out how to market this correctly because it's going to be different than the MLB. Because the MLB, when someone's going to be making their debut, so you can get the patch on the car. You can get the patch on the jersey, but like right away if you want, as soon as you know. With the NFL, you never know. There could be an injury. There could be. I don't know, halfway through whatever, some game, Drake May ends up coming in for Jacoby Brissett, which that was a crazy game. I mean, I know a lot of people had a survivor pool. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the largest pick, at least in this group that I'm in, was Cincinnati. So that was a pretty crazy game. But the other thing with this is like JJ McCarthy, for example, is he... will he just not have one of these patch cards? Because it's not like the MLB, like I said, where the rookie year could span across a couple different years in some cases, Randy Rosarena was considered a rookie over I think his rookie card was in 2019 and he won the rookie of the year in 2021, I'm pretty sure. But it's not like that in the NFL. JJ McCarthy, he's not going to play this year. And so that means he's no longer a rookie. So what are they going to do for this card? Is he just not going to have a card? Because there's no way. Because if they just decide that he is going to get a patch, it almost takes away. Oh, hey, you know what? Actually, maybe they might have worn in the preseason. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think the topic of the episode I think still stands. But now that I'm thinking about it, I am not 100% sure if the players wore that patch on their first game or not. I have a feeling they might have. But either way, so could players just not get it in their first year if they're out and they don't play any games? Or what happens? Because the whole point of it is that it's a patch that they wear when they first play, which maybe for the NFL, it could be your first start if you're a quarterback potentially, because that I think that might just be how they get around that. If I had to guess, I mean, if you're Drake May and they bring in, are they going to have enough time to get that on the regular jersey there? I mean, maybe not. But again, I think the idea, I don't know, it feels a little rushed, because now, I think this first Topps product that they came out with was okay, but I think that they're doing these patches means that no, because Actually, no, Jaden Daniels definitely would have played in the preseason. So that's because if he was wearing the patch today, sorry, I'm rehashing something that I was just talking about 30 seconds ago. Yeah, no, he was wearing the patch in the first game, and he would have played in the preseason to be the starter. So, okay, so maybe, yeah. So JJ McCarthy may not have that, or maybe he did. I'm not, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm not 100% sure one way or the other. But either way, I don't think it really matters. Like, the concept for the cards, like, I don't know. And the MLB, I think the card, because of the way that they can get those cards into Topps Chrome, like, is that what these patches are going to be? Are they going to be in Topps Chrome football? Like, or are they going to switch it? Like, because then that would mean that Topps Chrome football probably won't come out until after the Super Bowl, most likely, I guess, just based on when they can get all the patches off the players' jerseys. And then are we going to run into another scenario like that? I don't know. It's just the timing of sometimes. I'm hoping that Topps can figure out the timing a little bit better here than what they've been doing with this. Because like I said, we have Bryce Young rookies. Like, and I saw like a couple people on Twitter talking about how the Bryce Young from, it was Topps Finest in that Topps composite, which is just basically like Chronicles for Topps football. Non-licensed, by the way, also. The Topps Finest version, one of the Bryce Young was pulled. CJ Stroud. Sorry, CJ Stroud. I always get them mixed up. I mean, they played each other so many times in college that I just keep getting them mixed up sometimes on the show. But like, so that means they're going to be doing it for this year's for this year's basketball as well. And I don't know. I think the concept is really good, but I think, again, I feel like they're jumping the gun here by coming out with these products. Like, I don't know. I mean, they do have to capitalize on owning those exclusive licenses on some of these football players. So that's probably why they came out with this, because I don't know. It could have realistically, it could have been like an oversight, and they didn't know how many autographs they had. And then they're just like, oh, we have a whole another set, and it's like, we have to come out with these cards because we don't want to, we want to get the most bang for a buck. And maybe that's why it's coming out late. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but that could be the reason. And I think that would be, I don't know, not necessarily a valid reason, but a reason nonetheless. But so that means they're going to do it for basketball, probably more. And now, I mean, now that we're getting into a bunch of different products, I guess we don't know. I don't think the patch cards have come out for MLS. So I guess that will probably be the next step for these patch cards to figure out, like, the debut patches, what product they're going to be in, which I hope it's Topps Chrome, like, make it available for any collector who wants to get them. And even, I don't know. I think that they need to maybe figure out a different way to do the redemptions. I mean, and actually, well, now kind of the other thing is with this scanner thing. No, I guess they should be a redemption. These cards should be, I don't know. Redemptions are not good. And now the thing with the scanner is, like, you somebody could just be buying so much Topps Chrome, and it's not even like it's in a case. It's just in a box. So it's like, to be able to spot out the relic cards, maybe, but also it's like, now I don't know. Again, I'm kind of talking out some different theories and topics on this show a little bit, but like the scanners, like, because like in the Topps Dynasty boxes, there was only one card. So maybe the CT scanners don't work on the other versions of the card. It feels like there has to be a way that you can just add like some sort of metal plate that you can't scan. That feels like it's probably, I think that that has to be, they have to figure this out, because the CT scanners be real bad, and that has to be an innovation that probably is the one that I think is the most important right now for the industry to keep the integrity intact, because it's just, if we lose more legitimacy because people have just been scanning the cards, it's like, the company should have known about this and they should have fixed it in the first place. I don't know, whatever. But so that brings up the point. Are these cards, can they scan through the cards also? Like, could you see if you got a Topps Chrome box, and which I guess they would be in the Breakers and Breakers boxes or whatever, but the Breakers Delight or whatever, and they're all redemptions. But like, if they were to put them in there, I don't know. Or even if it's a redemption, could you be able to tell that way? Like, it's really, we've opened Pandora's box with these scanners to really not to really have to figure something out that's pretty dire. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with like these patch cards and what product they end up going in and how they're going to counteract sort of the stuff that's been going on, and like, are these cards even really going to be that relevant? Like, it feels like the debut patches, those were really relevant cards and they're going to be really important. But like with the non-licensed, I guess that's maybe going to be ultimately over the next few years. That's going to be one of my biggest questions is like, will people look at any unlicensed product and give it any weight? Or are we really going to stick to like, it has to be licensed? There's no excuses, no other way around it. It has to, the product has to be a licensed one, or the hobby is not going to consider it as like really any type of important card for a specific player. All right. So last week we had another piece of news that kind of fell later on in the week. And actually it was not even really a part two, but it was what I was going to talk about earlier on last week with one of the golden sales. There was a PSA 8 star rookie that sold for $244,000. And I don't know. I mean, it's definitely seen a bit of an increase since they switched over, or since PSA decided to start grading this again. But then late last week, I think it was like the 4th or the 5th, or the 6th. It was at some point last week. There was reports that there was a $1 million sale on one of the PSA 9s, which we had earlier seen this year. One of the PSA 9s sell for $925,000, just under $1 million. Now, there were reports on Darren Ravel's website that I guess in some private Facebook group, somebody who had contact with either a buyer or seller of these cards said that one of the cards sold for $1 million. Now, the card isn't up on Card Ladder, so I think that they're probably doing a little bit more. I guess maybe they're doing a little bit more due diligence before they put the actual sale on here, because it was a private sale and potentially they want to keep the price private, I guess. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure I don't think that's good. I don't know. I mean, it's $1 million card. These people are doing deals for $1 million. I guess they kind of have maybe a different mindset. Like maybe I'm more content brained and I want the sale to be public. I want people talking about it. But and I don't know. This isn't the first time that there's been some stuff on that site, like there was like a Babe Ruth jersey that, I don't know, they had some report that one of the companies said it wasn't real. I think I might have talked about that when the jersey had sold, and then that didn't really come to fruition. And now that we've got this private sale, it's not up on Card Ladder. It was a couple days ago. I'm sure they're probably, I don't know, hopefully they're just waiting and maybe getting the private sale information to verify can be a little bit tougher for Card Ladder. So that could be why it's taking so long potentially to get it on the sales information. But I don't know. The big thing here, I think, is that I don't know. I talked about probably on this podcast when they decided they were going to start grading. I know I talked about it on some podcasts. I don't remember if it was here on Hobby News Daily or if it was like the Heroes for Sale podcast, which was the one that I did before this one. I don't know how far back, just thinking of like when this news kind of came out. Sometimes the time, it just flies by when you're having fun. You know what I'm saying? So it could have been one of the podcasts. I don't know which one it was, but I talked about that this is going to be a big shift. And I don't necessarily know if I'm a huge fan that PSA is just deciding to switch their decision that has been something they have decided for years that they weren't going to grade this card. Like they just know all the companies. I don't know if they agreed on it all together, but I know that PSA did. They weren't grading it for a while. And even, one of the star, when I talked to I did an interview with the guy that bought the Mantle PSA 9 for $5.2 million. He said he also owned a Star Jordan, and either a PSA 9 or a PSA 8. And at the time, now that was back in probably 2021, realistically. So that was a while ago. But he said, at the time, they weren't grading it still. The PSA said they wouldn't even put it in a new holder because that was one of the things. It was in like an old PSA holder. And I don't know if there's any risk of that card coming back as not legitimate. Like, I don't know if I would want them really, really I don't know if I would want them really looking at that card potentially. Like, and I understand that sort of maybe defeats the integrity of the grading, but you know, I don't know. I wouldn't do it if I were him. I would even be like, don't look at, you know, I don't even, maybe if they're saying they don't want to grade it, they don't want to relook at it, they don't want to reholder it. I don't think that's really the word I'm looking for, but it might be reholder. I don't know if that's an actual word, or maybe I just made it up, but either way, this is, I don't know. I think this is changing the Jordan market here. Because for decades, I mean, I would say decades. I mean, even really probably since like the 90s and early 2000s, like with PSA not grading this card and them only grading that Fleer card, there was so many, you know, this was one of the first things that when I was getting back into sports cards, like way back in the day, that I was confused about. Because when I was looking up, like, you know, first learning about sports cards, I was like, oh, Michael Jordan, you know, best basketball player of all time. I'll look up what cards are his. I saw that there was an 86 Fleer card. But then I also found this star rookie. And in my head, I'm like, why? He's wearing a Bulls jersey. There's a Bulls logo. And obviously I learned more about what the star product was. Like, it technically wasn't a licensed product. I think it was in team sets. So it wasn't like within packs or anything. So there were reasons why, I guess there were reasons why people didn't consider it the rookie. I mean, I think and also the fact that PSA wasn't grading. I mean, that's the biggest one. I think all the other things, now that PSA has started to decide to grade this card, I think people will start to overlook the fact that, like, because like the cards themselves, like I said, they're not licensed technically, but they have all the logos on them. So it's like, who's to say what is and isn't licensed if it has the logos? Realistically, I think that's something that I think people are really going to have a conversation about, or people honestly that are coming into sports cards, because I think there's still tons of people who are coming in here. They're just going to look at it and they're just going to say, well, I'm just going to go with the star is the rookie. Like, they're people who are maybe new and who haven't been in the trenches or whatever. I consider myself sort of like with that, because I do a lot of content. So I'm looking at what a lot of people are saying. They might just look at the card and say, no, this is the star rookie is the rookie that you want to buy. Like, the Fleer, that came later. And because also it's technically not a rookie card. Like, and this is, I don't know, the debate of what is or isn't a rookie card could go on for years, could go on for forever. It probably will always be a conversation because of the way that, you know, with soccer, for example, like, that's one conversation that I think that people will continue to have, like, what is the rookie card of a certain player? Because it's just the way that sport works is that, like, you are technically a professional. Like, you could technically be a professional at 13 or 14 years old when you play for some random club team, like overseas somewhere. So, and even if you're playing at a smaller club, once you make the debut, it's like, are you a rookie then? Or is it when you first play in the Olympics, do you become a rookie then? I don't know. It's confusing with soccer, but I think now with PSA coming in, I don't know. I'm torn between thinking the decision is good and thinking the decision is bad, because I think ultimately the market should be the one deciding what rookie card or what card ends up being the most valuable for any given player. But I also worry that people who, I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest. I mean, I guess I'm worried about some people that maybe potentially invested in that Fleer card, you know, without the knowledge really that there could be any change. Without, you know, for decades, PSA, like I said, they just weren't grading the card. So like, you really were looking at like a limited supply and a supply that wasn't going to change because people weren't grading the card. And now with more cards being graded, like, I'm sure there's people that probably kept the cards in good condition. I mean, like I said, there aren't many of these cards graded. Like, I'm on Card Ladder right now. Let's see if I can pull up the population report. So there's only 300, which, I mean, I guess there isn't really that many. Oh, wait, no, sorry. No, there's like 300. There's like 300 Jordan PSA 10s. There's like 300 total of these cards with no PSA 10s. So I will be very interested to see if this card, if there's ever going to be a PSA 10, like, it will probably be the most expensive Jordan card just because of what we've seen with the PSA 9 sales, with the PSA 8 sale. We saw PSA 8, like I said, sell for $244,000. And now we have a potential PSA 9 selling for, now we have a potential PSA 9 selling for $1 million, which already was almost $1 million. It was in the 920,000 or whatever. So this, I think I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I look at it from two sides. Like maybe people aren't sending them in because they're worried that they're fake, or maybe people aren't sending them in because they never thought to really they never really thought that they would be able to. So now that there's all these high prices on some of these cards, and this is maybe the other issue that I'll have potentially, is like with some of these high value sales, it's going to add more to the grading process for any of these product or for any of these cards, because like I said, people just probably have them ungraded. And if there are only 350 total graded, I have to imagine in the next like couple years, that number's got to go up. Like with the amount of cards that there potentially are for this product, that number is going to skyrocket for sure. Especially once people start seeing, the prices of these sales. If they have this card, they're going to want to get it graded and potentially sell it. So, I guess we'll see what happens to the price here. I think if we ever see a PSA 10, that probably ends up being like the most expensive Jordan card of all time. But like also, I don't know, the gem rate is extremely low. I mean, just looking at Card Ladder, the gem rate of this card is 0.19%. So there's only 3 PSA 9s of that 300 total. So, if people have them, I guess we'll see what happens to some of the prices of, I don't know, even some of the lower graded ones. And maybe it'll be good because then people will get the cards out of circulation potentially as well. Like, because that's another thing. Like there was counterfeits for a while, and that's why PSA didn't grade it. So like how many of these counterfeits have been sold and are trying to get sent into PSA? That would actually be a very interesting question that I don't know if PSA has answered yet. What's the percentage of counterfeits you've found so far, versus what's the percentage of how many of these were people even sending in? Because like I said, the pricing of this is going to increase the price of the grading. So I don't know, people maybe don't want to spend that on, like maybe they don't even have it. That's kind of the thing. It's like with these graded, like even like I'm looking at some of the sales, PSA 6, and I think actually these are the Card Ladder values. So PSA 6, 48K, PSA 7, 66K, PSA 8 jumps up pretty high. They also have the half grades, which I think they use the half grades on some of the older versions of the card. I don't know if they still are using, like maybe they still use half grades for PSA, but I don't think they do. Just because like I don't think I've graded a bunch of stuff from PSA and I've never gotten back a half graded card. So with this potential $1 million sale, I guess we'll see how much of this card, how much of the population skyrockets. But I would also like PSA to potentially come out and say there is a high percentage that you have a fake version of the card. So if it comes back, like don't be surprised if 50% of the cards that are getting graded for that specific version end up just coming back as unauthentic. So Nat Turner, the CEO of Collectors, home of PSA cards and PSA coins, I'm just reading his Twitter bio here. Entrepreneur, golfer, card collector. Sorry, that's all. But no, so he put out a tweet the other day, yesterday actually, no, 2 days ago at this point now, that he was looking at some of the data, and according to Card Ladder, August 2024 was the second highest month on record for total card sales across all platforms, second only to February of 2022. Now, I looked at this chart, and it only goes back to 2010, but it's like 2010, that's probably when like eBay really started doing a decent amount when it came to like tracking sales and stuff along those lines. So I'm guessing that's probably why it has to go back that far. I don't know. That's what I'd have to guess. But either way, there was no way that even if you were to go back farther than just back to 2010, there's no way any of these years would have been higher than they have been recently. I mean, obviously, you have the first part of 2020 comes around, then 2022, you see a crazy spike from 2020 to 2021, then a pretty big dip, But then right at the beginning of 2022, a big jump back up and then kind of slowly moving down. And then 2024, again, a jump back up to higher numbers than we saw in the beginning of 2021, which if you're looking at the chart, actually, there's a couple dots here on the chart that are probably around the same area. So like if he's saying February of 2022 is the highest at 251 million, and then August 2024 that was 236 million. There's also some dots here that if that's probably has to be, if that was February, that's probably like April or May of 2022. There was also a high month there. So that's lower. That's third. And then fourth is another month that was at the beginning of 2024, which granted, that maybe has to do with, there was that Babe Ruth card. Maybe that's what card had sold in that time frame. And that was a pretty expensive card. So that would be a pretty crazy month or a pretty crazy quarter, which is, I think that's what these years are broken out into. It looks like 1, 2, 3. It looks like there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 dots on each year. So it's maybe there's like 6 seasons or whatever that they're doing here. But that being said, the second highest month since 2022 of all time, which I'm saying of all time, but that's just because it's the card ladder data only goes back to 2010, but there's no way that before 2010 there were any like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of sales within any given year or any given month. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to see that there is still so much money within cards, and I think that I talked about that last week. I know that was a topic that I had on my mind for one of the episodes. I kind of want to discuss that a little bit, but I guess I'm not 100% sure if that subject ended up getting into any episodes last week. But just overall, the fact that there were a couple close to $1 million or $1 million sales like over this past summer. So August being in that $235 million in sales across all platforms. That must be eBay, and then that's not even to say like because there was a national. Well, was the national in August? Yeah, it wasn't August, but was it? No, I guess that would have been July. No, I guess that was the first week of August. So technically, there would have probably been 3 more days. And I wonder if that data is tracked. I don't know how they would be able to necessarily track it, but I wonder if there was the first, second, and third, and well, actually in the fourth. So pretty much the whole weekend of the national was in August. So I wonder if they are able even. I don't think they are. I think unless someone's reporting to them sales that they had, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess that maybe, I don't know. Maybe they could do that. I don't think Card Ladder does it. I think Card Ladder does with like eBay sales. They track all the eBay sales. But I guess that might be an interesting feature that they should add, actually, is like if you're a dealer, and you have a data that says what your sales were, maybe you can report there. I don't know. I mean, it's maybe the data isn't going to be super different than what's already existing across all the different platforms. So maybe it's not worth the time. But like the national, for example, that might be an interesting time period to be like, or any of the big shows, maybe even the Dallas Card Show or something like that. If dealers could submit their sales to Card Ladder potentially, I don't know. That'd be interesting. But whatever. So I don't know if any of that data, like I said, I don't know if any of the big sales that happened during the national, which I don't know. This year's national, I gotta admit, it was kind of slow. Now that could have been probably because I wasn't there. That probably was the reason that I felt like it was slow, that I wasn't there. But I don't know. It seemed like the hype leading into the national, and then even the hype after the national, was just not as high as I remember seeing in different years. So maybe there weren't any big monster sales that would really push this number in one direction or another. I mean, it wouldn't be one way or the other. It would only make the number higher. So was there, I mean, let's see, what's the difference between the 2 months? Was there 20, 26, 25? Was there 20? No, sorry, other way around. 15. Was there $15 million worth of sales that happened at the National? Maybe. I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. It's kind of, the number's so big, and I don't know like what I didn't really have a good sense of what was going on the floor. Just being at home and not really seeing it. And then Fanatics Fest actually too. So that's actually probably the two biggest shows. And then was there a Dallas card show in August? I don't know. I forget. But two of the biggest shows of the year, both fell in August. So, I don't know. It's just interesting. And to see the money that's coming in and out or the total amount of sales. Now, I think total sales could be also a little bit deceiving, if I'm going to be honest, because there's probably a chance that some of the cards that people were selling, they were selling at a pretty significant loss. So, like, there's no way to really track what I don't necessarily think it would be revenue. You wouldn't call it really revenue. Like the plus minus, like the plus minus of the $236 million. Like, did they buy were all the cards that sold? And this is obviously a hypothetical that no one would know here, but were all the cards that were sold, what were they bought at? Like, were they bought at like 250? And, in that case, then the 236 is bad. But if they were like all bought hypothetically for like 100 million, inventory overall, obviously not one card, but if the inventory that was sold during the month of August, let's say it was bought for 100 million. Obviously, that's going to be the 130 extra million you're making on that. That's going to be a good thing. So I don't know. That's kind of like the thing with I think it's important data, obviously, as we just talked about, and to see the amount of money that's still being spent around sports cards and like what the new money is that's coming into that. Like, I don't know, or if it's just like people buying and selling and, kind of cards and money moving around to big groups of the same people potentially, or like, if it's one or two people that are kind of just buying and selling and it's like the money. I think what we saw, if you look at this chart, I think what we saw probably in 2021 at the peak is a lot of money got taken out of the industry. I think that's really what happened here. And when that happened, I think a lot of people took their money out. And then I think some people probably ended up panic selling because they saw things go from like pretty high at the beginning of or low at the beginning of 2021, go up and peak, and then kind of come back to around to where the prices were, like obviously a little bit higher here. If you're looking at the data specifically, people probably, and that's probably the case there. It's probably people sold at a lower price, and then some people probably just took their money out because that was a year after the pandemic. So it's like any type of government assistance, any type of that stuff was pretty much over. So it's like, I think a lot of money was taken out. So I'm wondering if from this now 236 million, like that is kind of the point of what I was just saying. It's like, where did they buy these cards and what price did they buy them at versus like, is this money that someone's buying, whatever, they're buying they're buying some sort of expensive card. Let's say they're buying, off the top of my head, I don't know, like they're buying $100,000 card. But let's say they're getting maybe, I don't know, let's just say 10,000 from something else, but then they're selling 90,000 worth of cards to then get that 100,000. So like if you kind of look at it that from that scenario, it's actually $190,000 worth of sales there. So like I said, that the number is high. And I don't think it's necessarily a deceiving one. I think you look at the industry and you look at some of the high sales that we've seen through some of the big platforms. There's still all that money in there. But like, I don't know if we have another run like where people sell all their stuff and they take their money out, that could be bad. But I think we've definitely recovered from that happening back in 2021, and we are seeing that more data and more things are happening within the industry. We had the Fanatics Festival. We have Fanatics, coming in and starting their basketball stuff. So the industry is continuously changing. But I think what we're seeing now is things are much more, they're much more easy to understand, in my opinion. Like, I think over the past few years, we have seen things happen where I'm just like, I don't really understand why that card is selling for that value. But at the same time, with this money, I do wonder, I think my last point here is basically just how much of the money is what people were selling from cards to buy other cards. And I guess, that is a good thing. It's enriching the ecosystem, I think, within sports cards. So it's like, if you can upgrade your card and then sell some of the cards you don't want, that's kind of the game. That's the game right there. That's like the art of selling sports cards and being a collector in some scenarios, like, making some choices that you're going to be buying and selling, and then making some choices that you are going to buy a card, hold it, and then sell it eventually to upgrade it to, what you would consider a better card. Now, to be honest, I guess I'm not super surprised by this happening. I have been talking about how I felt like the market was becoming a little bit less reactionary. And, maybe it's just sport by sport. I think it does matter what sport is being discussed in the discussion of the reactionary versus non-reactionary sports card market buyers and sellers. Because Friday night, second game of the season, we had the Packers versus the Eagles. Jordan Love coming into his second full season of playing, obviously not a rookie. I think he was drafted in 2020. So actually, yeah. And then I think he played 2 years ago, and then Aaron Rodgers left, so it's his team. And on the second to last play of the game, he steps back to throw the Hail Mary and falls incomplete, but he gets hurt. Malik Willis comes in, and Malik Willis was one of those players that I felt like had a decent following in the sports card market. People who prospect probably liked Malik Willis, but I think also he was kind of stuck in that cycle where he wasn't going to be the starter. Like, I believe he might also be a 2020 draft pick as well, because he was originally on the Titans and drafted by the Titans and then signed with the Packers this offseason. And basically the point of this is that ComC puts out, I've talked about on the podcast multiple times, is like ComC puts out their top players that sold in the past week. And after week 1 of the NFL season, the number one player with the highest volume of sales based on ComC's data was Malik Willis. And I guess maybe it's a quarterback thing, has to be a quarterback thing. I don't see that happening. Like, I don't see, with Christian McCaffrey, doesn't seem like people are running out to grab whoever Christian McCaffrey's backup is. Just in general, it's mostly just quarterbacks. And even though Malik Willis, I guess we'll see how good he is too. This is kind of the interesting thing. Like, for him, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine if he sees somebody like Jordan Love ahead of him, he's signing this contract being like, I'm going to be the backup quarterback. Like, I in my mind, I'm doing the things that a backup quarterback does here because, Jordan Love is Jordan Love. Like, he played okay in the regular season last year, but then had a pretty good, had one playoff win. Had one playoff win, then one playoff loss, obviously, in the next round after he won. But in his first playoff stint, played pretty well, brought the team pretty far. And it goes to show that, I think maybe the reaction to things that are happening on the field or court or wherever, maybe it is more of an NFL thing where there is this type of reactionary, because the games are all on one week, and then you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday where there are no games, where before it used to be Monday Night Football, and then it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There was no football. So 5 days in a row. Now it's crazy. I mean, now you have that Thursday night game, which gets the weekend kicked off, which is great. Friday night, I don't think they're doing anymore. I don't think they have many more Friday night games. I mean, maybe like around Christmas time, they usually do a Friday night game, depending on what day Christmas falls on. But now with all of the games, or not now, but all of the games have been happening on this one day. Maybe that is what causes the football market to be a little bit more reactionary. I mean, if we go back to, I don't think it was 2020, maybe it was 2021, like Star Stock, they did like a fantasy football contest. It was like basically like you start out with X amount of dollars on their site, and if you buy and sell, whoever ends up with the most money, I guess, in their account ends up winning, which I was a little bit confused by the rules at the end there. I did sell a lot of stuff at the end, and I kind of halfway through the season, I kind of was like, this isn't exactly working how I expected. So like towards the end of the season, I was selling everything, and I got second in that, which is actually pretty wild. And I got a Christian McCaffrey PSA 10, which I think I sold. Pretty sure I sold that. I don't know. Actually, maybe I still have it. I forget off the top of my head if I sold it or not. But football, I think, is just one of those sports where it's like, it's the biggest gambling sport. Maybe it's just the crowd of people that like football and are interested in football cards are, also gamblers, because gambling, I think, in football it definitely has to be the biggest sport for gambling. NBA maybe, but like with all those games on Sunday, it's just so easy to get like to dive into like every single game and bet on them or whatever. But maybe, and I'm not talking about like tournaments either, because college basketball, but like I'm talking about week to week football. The market might just be much more reactionary than other sports. And I don't even really necessarily think that is like that's not like a shocker or a hot take. I think just looking at this individual piece of data, like when it comes to things, I don't like taking just one piece of data and being like, this is the truth of it all. But it's like, how can you not look at like Malik Willis, who was anybody, he was on no one's real radar really. And it's like, if you're somebody who is if you're buying backup quarterback cards, Malik Willis was not somebody on your radar, because there was Jordan Love. How do I want to? I was going to say Malik Willis is the Jordan Love of Jordan Love. No, I don't think that's exactly the right comparison. But I think like if you were looking at backup quarterbacks saying, I want to buy this person's cards because they could start, and then that's an opportunity to sell. The Jordan Love, Malik Willis, there was no competition there. Jordan Love has been one of the most popular up and coming quarterbacks in the sports card market for years, because of Aaron Rodgers and because of the history of Packers quarterbacks and what they've done. They've basically hit 100% of all quarterbacks, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to what people presumed was going to be Jordan Love. Now, luckily, he's only going to be out, it seems like, for about half the season. From what I saw, it was a 6 to 10 week window, from some of the reports that I was looking at. So I don't know. Maybe that gives people another opportunity to buy Jordan Love. Like, this is sort of the interesting thing about the buying and selling opportunities that come within the industry, is like, if you had any Malik Willis, yeah, this is probably the time to sell, because like, I don't know, is he going to turn into Geno Smith and have like a second half of his career that's like, he becomes a starter and it's like totally this revolution. He totally revolutionizes the team and takes over and is a quarterback. Yeah, maybe, I guess. But like, Geno Smith could have just as easily become Johnny Manziel, like a quarterback who a lot of people liked, who was like a high draft pick, and then just really just peters out and just doesn't play well. And now Malik Willis has a couple weeks to kind of, I don't know, maybe show that he should be a starter somewhere. Like, I think it would be interesting. I guess I don't know when the
NFL trade deadline is. But like, if Malik Willis plays well, who's to say he doesn't get traded? And that doesn't give him then another opportunity here to, if you're buying Malik Willis, like I wouldn't buy him this week. I probably wouldn't buy him at all, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think your opportunity to buy him was in the offseason when nobody was looking to buy him. But I think now we do. If you have any Malik Willis cards, I don't know. This might be a good time to think about selling or ride it out. I mean, this is the gambler mindset of me. It's like, well, you could sell. If I had to guess, you're probably doubling or tripling your money on any Malik Willis cards you bought this offseason. So like, maybe that is just an opportunity. You want to say, hey, I bought Malik Willis with the anticipation that something can happen with him. He signs, he's a backup. Now he's the starter. Maybe it's just, wipe your hands clean with the Malik Willis and move on to another player. Because you got that one right. If you were a Malik Willis buyer, you guessed right. You got that one right. If he plays well, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe if the Packers decide to trade him, because like they have their starting quarterback coming back. Like, and this is not, this isn't that. I don't think this is a Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe scenario where it's like Malik Willis is going to take over. But at the same time, if he does, that also just gives you maybe a potential other opportunity. If you're willing to gamble, there are going to be opportunities in the future potentially for Malik Willis cards to go up. But if you are maybe a little bit more conservative and you want to get out of Malik Willis right now, I think that's also a very viable strategy when it comes to his cards. Because, like I said, if you were buying Malik Willis's cards in the offseason, I can't imagine there were that many people doing that. So you probably got them pretty inexpensive. And this was just the first opportunity of the season to sell based on an injury because, I don't know. And I don't know if it changes anyone's strategy because, like, who knows? Like, it's a last second injury at the end of the game. It's such a fluke injury almost that, like, I guess it would be tough to try and replicate that. But if you can, obviously you'd want to do that. And if you're buying and selling NFL cards with the anticipation that they'll go up, I guess you kind of have to look for opportunities like this where the starter, you're holding the cards and maybe you'll be fine selling them if they don't go up. But like, you have to have obviously the extra. A play like this should not be something where you are spending all of your budget on the cards in hopes that it happens, because the chances that we have another quarterback injury and then a backup quarterback tends to be a hobby person within the hobby that people like. In my opinion, it just doesn't seem very likely. We kind of have a couple topics to talk about. I've got two quick headline things that I think are interesting, and then one big piece of news that dropped from Topps in the past, I don't know what, 24, 48 hours. The first topic is going to be, well, not topic, first headline is that that 1 of 1, the gold 1 of 1 non-auto Steph Curry, LeBron, KD card has been found and will be on Golden Auctions. Jeff Wilson had put out he was looking to buy it for $25,000. Now, this will be one of the first times, I think, that we've seen somebody with an open bounty on a card like that basically turn down the offer and he's going to sell it to the market. So, like, is this more than a $25,000 card potentially? What the final price of the card ends up being, I don't really know. I mean, the bounties are interesting. Like the bounty with that LeBron or with the 1 of 1 auto really turned into kind of a bidding war on bounties. But it's like, dude, those were some low offers if you really look back at it. The fact that someone eventually was willing to spend $500K and the first offer was $100, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? But so that's it. So the card is still, it's not live on Golden while I'm recording. It might be. It's going in the September Elite auctions. I'm assuming they're preparing the listing. So it's not live right now, I don't think. At least the last time I checked, it wasn't live. The other interesting piece, I guess it's another Topps topic, and the third topic is actually also about Topps. But Slab Stocks, my guy Aaron over at Slab Stocks, was doing a break with some of this year's Bowman product. And he found when he was opening the cards, there was a 2017 Bobby Witt autograph that was in the packs. And Topps did explain it a little bit, but I don't know. So they said when baseball players are still amateur status, many of them sign autographs while playing in various All-American games. However, we cannot put these cards into products until after they sign the deal with the athlete. Because of this, there are many incredible autos that have been released that have had their releases delayed throughout the years. This 2017 Baseball Factory All-American Game autograph of Bobby Witt Jr. is his earliest autograph in existence. And that was just out of a 2024 Bowman pack. And I don't know if they're doing this with other cards. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think so. I mean, this is really one of the first times I've seen something like this where they're putting an old autograph into a new product, which is that realistically they should just be doing that. I think that is I think that's a cool way for them to, I don't want to say get rid of the autographs, but use the autographs in a way that's like, productive, that they don't have to do too much extra effort. Like, sure, maybe they have to put it on the checklist, but it might even, I guess I'm not super into checklists nowadays. So like maybe this flew under the radar. Maybe it wasn't on the checklist. It could be either or. I don't really know because I didn't know that this was going to happen. This seemed like a very, Aaron was surprised, and Aaron's a guy who does a lot of spreadsheet, who looks at checklists all the time, working for Slabstock or owning Slabstocks, I guess. And then also, with the chart stuff that they do, I would imagine, and if they're doing breaks, they also do breaks. So like, I would imagine they look at checklists all the time. So I was surprised to see that he was surprised. And it may just be that, I don't know, maybe there's like one line in the checklist, and that's why we didn't really catch it. Potentially, I guess, or maybe it's a mystery, but that gets into like kind of a whole different type of conversation of like if there should be mystery cards within products. Like, somebody has to know the mystery, and someone down the line, it shouldn't be the customer that essentially has to take on the burden of not knowing that this card's going to be in there, especially when they're pricing stuff, shops and stuff along those lines and breakers. That's where I don't like. That's where I don't exactly like the mystery. Now we're going to get into, and I know we're about halfway through the show here, but we're going to get into kind of the main topic of the show, and it is that Topps announced they are expanding their trading card deal with Disney to include Disney, Pixar, and Marvel trading cards for global rights. They said this deal will go into effect the first quarter of 2025. So I don't know if this means that, like, because there were a bunch of Disney cards that came out. I know there was a Japanese product that came out a couple years ago. There was also a Chinese product that came out. Now, I know that there have been Topps Chrome Disney 100 cards that were released in the UK. But now it looks like Disney is going to be, they're going to be making Disney cards here in the United States. And, the in the graphic that they put out, sorry, I had this up and I closed it. In the graphic, they put like Mickey Mouse, Darth Vader, one of the characters from Inside Out, the main character from I don't remember what main character this girl is from. It's from one of the newer Disney movies, but I forget the bottom left if you're looking at the graphic, and then Iron Man. So the sky's the limit with this license. It's really going to be pretty. I think it's going to be pretty crazy what they decide to do. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we start to get Disney related products the same way we just get sports products. Because why wouldn't you? You can do now that they have the whole license and it's global. It's not just, it's not just in the UK, or it's not, well, I guess they didn't technically own the Chinese or the Japanese companies that were coming out with cards, but those were Pixar cards. But now we're going to see an increased amount of these Disney products. And the one thing that I ask of Disney, or what I ask of Topps, is that they do not come out with fake autographs, because in the Disney 100 product, I was tricked actually at first, if I'm going to be honest, and maybe this is why I'm so adamant about trying to make this a message here. I thought that the autographs were like real or whatever, and I was like, these are kind of weird. Like they were like Finding Nemo character signing as their character names. But then they weren't real autographs. As I was looking at them after I recorded the episode a little bit more, I was like, all of these autographs look exactly the same. And then I looked closer at the cards and I realized that they were actually the like acetate part of the design. Like it wasn't even, there was no signature, there was no auto. Yeah, I didn't like that at all. And I hope that they don't do that for any of these Disney products, because, or at least I just hope they don't promote it, because I feel like I remember seeing them promote like the autographs like on Topps and being like, oh, look at these autographs that are pulled. It's like, yeah, but why are we promoting autographs that aren't real autographs? Like that just doesn't, that seems sketchy to me. And it's like the main account for Topps was tweeting out these images of these cards, I remember. And it's like, why are we promoting autographs that are not real autographs as like the cards that you want to get out of this product? I actually would like them to just not do that at all. No autographs, no fake autographs, unless they actually are signed by the characters. I think that's really the only way I would do autographs in these Disney products. Unless the characters are actually the ones signing the cards, don't do any autographs, because it's not, I don't think it's a good look to try and legitimize things within the industry, and then somebody can come in and buy some Disney products and they think that they got an autograph, but then it's not a real autograph. And then they go to the Topps, Twitter, and they see that they're promoting the cards like they're autographs, even though you have the card in your hand and you're like, this is not a real autograph. Why are they promoting them like they're real autographs? So that, again, sorry, maybe I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit too much here. I think it's massive that Topps has gotten this entity, because if you look at from an IP perspective, Disney owns almost everything. So I think that this could mean a bunch of different things. We're going to see all of those characters. And then I think we're also, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to do like what, I wonder how they're going to break it up, because like I said, it's Marvel, Disney, and Pixar. Marvel, Disney, Pixar, and then Star Wars, they're saying it's its own entity, which it is, I guess. I mean, Disney did buy Star Wars, so it's technically a Disney property, but it is, it's its own thing. So like I said, Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars. Are they going to be all different? I hope that they do different products. I hope that they do mixed products. I hope that they can do any different types of things. And again, this is Topps doing what they've done over these past few years. They are looking at the market and they're saying, where have we not created something? And I guess they have came out with those Topps, top Disney 100 cards, the Topps Chrome Disney 100. But like they're looking at fan bases of things that are popular and saying, these fans have never really had, and I know when I say never, I'm not, never is maybe in quotations, because you could find tons of these cards, but have never had like a mainstream outlet to buy the cards. Because it's like, if you were to try and buy a box of either the Japanese or the Chinese Disney or Pixar cards, I think the Chinese company made the Disney cards, I think the Japanese company made the Pixar cards. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit sketchier buying from overseas. Now they're going to have the opportunity to buy these cards here in the States or in Canada or whatever, or wherever people are buying cards within the United States. I mean, I know a lot of people that are listeners are from the United States, but yeah. And I think there was something about, I think I read an article, or there was some headline that I read back when those Disney 100 cards came out. And the reason that they came out in Europe first was because it was going to be less expensive to ship them to other parts of the world than if they had been released in the United States and then shipped other places. I think that was one of the reasons why that Disney 100 product didn't come out in the United States. But that might be speculation, and I don't know that for sure. but we now are going to have the collectors and people who like that. Like, and I don't know, are they going to do TCG? I mean, that's kind of the thing. Are they going to come out with a game? I mean, I don't know exactly how they're going to do this. Like, if they do, I guess that would be kind of cool. I don't know if they will. I think they may stick to sports cards potentially, but this is just another step. And I would say, I think Topps' next step really is probably to start getting into like streaming, potentially, because like in my opinion, and this is kind of where I'll wrap up the episode here. In my opinion, the modern Disney is streamers and people who make content online. That, because if you look back at, like, for example, when I was younger, or like even a generation above me when they were younger, they had Disney, they had all the cartoons, they had all the things on TV. And nowadays, even myself, I find myself watching a lot more streaming. I find myself watching a lot more on YouTube and Twitch, and following those types of personalities more than I do any of the, Marvel or any of these Disney movies. So I think that's probably the next step. And I think it's also a possibility because it's like Michael Rubin has relationships with these streamers most likely, or he's well known enough that it shouldn't be that hard for him to make these relationships. And I think that's their next step here. It would be kind of tough, but at the same time with Disney, also the ESPN. So, like, I don't know if there's something there, because like Disney, ESPN, I think Disney owns ESPN. So maybe there's something there too. But overall, big move for Topps. Maybe one of the biggest moves of the year, or maybe one of the biggest IP announcements of the year for Topps. I think, Panini hasn't really done anything that big. They did announce they were doing some more stuff with NILs. But like, if we're comparing NIL deals to those Disney bucks, yeah, I think I'm going to have to be taking Disney over any of those NIL deals.